students, and in this video you're going to be learning how to exceed mastery with your analysis, which is going to be pretty difficult to do because to get mastery I thought was pretty hard.
Analysis is a tough one, and exceeding mastery is really hard, but you can do it.
So let's show you a few strategies you can do to make sure that you're going to push your analysis from mastery to exceeds. So let's take a look at the rubric, and we've kind of pulled out the key differences between the mastery rubric and the exceeds rubric, and I put some of these words in bold. An exceeds analysis is going to draw logical conclusions and inferences from all the evidence provided. So you see the word logical conclusions, which is part of it, but also the frequency, all the evidence provided is part of it.
Every time you give evidence, you always provide conclusions or an analysis of that evidence.
In addition, an exceeds analysis has to relate their thinking back to the larger purpose of the paper, like the thesis statement or the topic sentence of the paragraph. The analysis should support that. So it's not just coming up with good analysis, it's coming up with good and useful analysis.
That support your big idea. And to exceed, you want to increase the frequency of that analysis to make sure it happens and that it's purposeful.
Yep, so we should see, to exceed, we should see more analysis, it should be more purposeful, and it should be a little bit higher thinking. Those three things to get to the exceeds category. So let's take a look at how we can make logical conclusions from our evidence. So I have 3 facts. Okay, it's about the First Amendment. So we've learned that the First Amendment protects the freedoms of speech, which includes symbolic speech, like having a sign or like a hair color or whatever. The second fact we learned about, in schools you have free speech, but you can't disrupt learning. The third fact is that in order to have free speech, you must have a political point. You can't just yell for no reason. It has to have a purpose to it. So these are 3 things that we learned about the First Amendment.
Those are 3 facts that everybody knows about the First Amendment. So now we're going to try to use analysis of those facts. Dyeing your hair pink in support of cancer awareness should be allowed by the First Amendment in schools because it doesn't disrupt the learning and it has a clear political message.
So I've taken the facts and I have drawn a conclusion that hair dyeing of pink, because it has a political purpose of cancer awareness, that is the conclusion I've drawn from this evidence. Is it logical?
Yep.
Does it make sense?
It makes sense.
Is it follow the facts?
So just coming in with your hair dyed green to dye your hair green isn't protected under the First Amendment, but to dye it pink on Cancer Awareness Day, that would be protected.
And it's a logical
conclusion. A logical conclusion.
Yep.
Draw.
So that's something you need to do with your evidence, to actually think about it and conclude logically. The next thing you need to do with your analysis is you need to make sure that the analysis you give connects to the larger purpose of the paper. So every paper has a thesis statement. In this fake example, the thesis statement is, without compromise, the Constitution would have never been passed. We learned about issues in the Constitution, and here's historical evidence that big states and small states argued over representation in Congress, and they eventually had a compromise, which gave both sides a little bit of what they wanted so both sides could agree. In our analysis, we want to make sure that we use those facts but actually support our thinking. So it is clear from the evidence that the 2 sides would not have agreed without compromise. Neither side was willing to give in, as they argued for several months about this issue. The compromise allowed the 2 sides to agree on a plan that was fair for both sides. But if we continue on here, you'll see that if we go back to our thesis, that analysis supports the thesis. See that part in blue?
That goes right back to
it goes right back to my overall point, which is really important. That's why I have this arrow here. So you can see that my analysis supports the thesis.
The overall picture of the paper.
So it's making my point stronger.
Mm-hmm.
To wrap things up, to exceed mastery in analysis, you must do these things. You need to make interesting, creative, and logical conclusions from the evidence. We should see some good, higher-level thinking.
And that logic needs to always go back again to your thesis. It needs to be something that the way you presented the facts and the evidence shows that you're thinking logically about whatever it is that you are saying in your paper.
Yeah, and then the last thing is the frequency. If we see this kind of thinking once in your writing in one paragraph, that's not enough to get exceeds. In the exceeds category, you're including analysis for each point.
All throughout your whole paper.
So it should be frequently included, not just once or twice.
Paragraph, all the time.
So if you do these 3 things, you would get your exceeds in the analysis category.